Now I am not making this video because I used to be called Coconut Head in school. That would be so petty and immature, and I am talking to you, Parker. I hope that baby tooth you lost never grew back in. No, but growing up, I was not cute. In high school, still not cute. You would think. You would really think. I think I just got cute in... I just got cute. But now that I'm a little cuter, more importantly, I'm a little smarter, so let's shatter these goddamn beauty standards. Ow! Ow! Oh my god. So let's talk about why we feel like shit and how to not feel that way. I recently read The Beauty Myth by Naomi Wolf, and she argues that there is a direct and intertwined relationship between female liberation and female beauty. Oh, tell me more. Okay. She believes that under the illusion of, you know, the modern, progressive, working woman, there is this secret underlife poisoning our notions of freedom. Her main argument is that the use of images of female beauty is an intentional backlash and strategy against feminism and a deliberate political weapon against women's advancement. That is the beauty myth. Y'all, let's talk about that. She goes on to say that there's this belief of beauty, that it is this universal, unchangeable fact. And we argue that it's biological and it's about primal procreation, and a woman's beauty represents her fertility. But that is pure fiction. It is an ideology created and perpetuated to keep women oppressed. And here is why. Beauty and politics. I have never done this before. Let's just ignore that. So beauty and politics, let's talk about that. I'm being weird. I'm being really weird. So beauty is a currency system, and like any economy, it is determined by politics. And Wolf argues that as of right now, it is the last and best tactic they have to keep the patriarchy alive. That don't know what happened there, and you know, keep men in power. Can we take a moment? They made that shit up. The audacity. Men are so bold. So as proof that beauty is a cultural idea, there is a African tribe called the Nigerian Modabes. I am sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Please, anyone, educate me. I can only apologize. But in that culture and in that tribe, the women are the ones who have economic power, and the men actually get dressed up in makeup and dance provocatively in beauty contests judged by the women. And all I can say is, those women are living the life. Okay. So the beauty myth is not about women at all. It's about men's institutions and men's institutional power. The beauty myth actually prescribes behavior more than appearance. There is no legitimate biological justification for the beauty myth. It is a counterattack against women to keep us from being the boss bitches that we can be. Here's further proof. Since Victorian times, women's work that occupied them were often tedious, repetitive, and time-consuming, like needlepoint or lace making. These Victorian inventions served as a double function. Women were creative and passionate about the activities that they were prescribed to, so they were encouraged to these as a means of using up female energy and intelligence in harmless ways. The beauty myth really started rolling after the Industrial Revolution. The middle class was expanding, literacy rates were rising, families were shrinking, so a new class of literate and restless women developed, and men didn't like that because they and industrial capitalism relied on women's submission and enforced domesticity. And that's the feminine mystique for us, but This is really when it became apparent that behavior that was necessary for the economy became disguised as social virtue. They couldn't keep us in the home, so they tried to restrain us in a different way. Wolf really said something that stuck with me. She said inexhaustible and ephemeral beauty work took over for inexhaustible and ephemeral housework. Western economies are completely dependent on the continued underpayment of women. An ideology that makes women feel worth less was needed to counteract the way feminism was making us feel worth more. How clever of them! Clever boys! Beauty is now a currency system. Men have used it as a form of currency, so it runs parallel with the ideas of money too. A woman looks like $1 million. She's a first-class beauty. Her face is her fortune. Women learn to understand their own beauty as a part of this consumer economy. Men became accustomed to having beauty evaluated as wealth or status, but for women it was evaluated as worth. The beauty myth generates low female self-esteem, which has a financial value in this current marketplace and generates high profits for corporations as a result. This shit keeps us from getting that bread. Fuck the lashes if I can't get paid what I'm worth. Freeze frame. Oh, this is like, sorry, I just wanted like a segue to introduce myself from the future editing realm. But I think that was really not cool. But the reason I time traveled is just so lame, okay? It's just because I wanted to add that this is also why the skincare and makeup and cosmetic surgery industries are absolutely booming right now, is that they really feed off of our insecurities and our fear, our fear of lacking tits, or our fear of aging, or just fear of not looking like what we're expected to look like. And they also perpetuate this through advertising and pop culture. And I literally just spent $40 on face cream. Like, $40! I mean, I'm just treating myself as I try to justify to myself that I just spent $40 on lotion. But it really is okay to treat yourself. I'm not trying to preach or anything. I guess all I'm trying to say is that we can try to be more conscious consumers and be conscious of the advertisements and the beauty products that we're absorbing, and make sure that our purchases are coming from a place of love for ourselves rather than fear for ourselves. Beauty and relationships. The myth affects our relationships with sex, our relationships with ourselves, our relationships with men, and our relationships with other women. It fucks it all up. So I think it'd be better for everyone if we just figured it out now and made amends and resolutions. Critic John Berger says, men look at women, women watch themselves being looked at. This determines not only the relations of men to women, but the relation of women to themselves. What little girls learn is not to feel desire for another person, but to desire the feeling of being desired. And that is where the worth from the male gaze stems from. In terms of female beauty and worth and sexuality, if you keep women's eyes lowered to their own bodies and they glance up only to see their reflections in the eyes of other men, I mean, that shit fucks you up. Wolf says that because media and images of women and women's bodies are seen from a point of view of strangeness and desire, it's no wonder that what should feel familiar and whole ends up feeling estranged and divided into parts. So we begin to split women up into, boobs or ass or legs for miles. We lose our own person, our own personhood. Porn, movies, photography, all these images are created and portrayed to please men. So we begin to feel a stigma towards female pleasure and female masturbation and female sexuality. And we learn to look at ourselves through the eyes of men, and through that we learn to value the desire and pleasure of men over our own. Then you get into the whole idea about innocence and virginity and how it's just another societal construct to restrain women's bodies. That's the one thing about our culture, like we're so obsessed with infringing upon women's bodies. That really reminds me of a quote in Sally Rooney's book, Normal People. I'm gonna try to find it. I think it fits. She says, generally, this is Marianne talking, a character, okay. Generally, I find men are a lot more concerned with limiting the freedoms of women than exercising personal freedoms for themselves. Wow. It's like, they have so much power, they can have so much fun, but they spend all their time being like, I just don't want them to have fun. Like, women should suffer. It's just annoying. It's just annoying. And the beauty myth hurts men too. I know it uplifts them into power, but it just keeps them from truly seeing women and seeing their whole personhood. So it becomes a very cyclical, insidious nature. Our relationships with other women are so fucked because of this. Competition between women have been made to be a part of this myth because it keeps women divided. We're more powerful when we stand together. We do this because we feel like there's limited space for us, there's limited resources, everything is limited, everything's restrained, and then we spend all our time competing with other women and comparing ourselves with other women that we don't actually just be like, wait a minute, let's just dismantle this whole system. Like, I stand with you. We're cool. We're good. Our relationship with youth is so unfair. As men age, their wrinkles are dignified and show power and wisdom and experience, but with women, we don't get to age so gracefully. Aging in women is undignified and graceless, even though we become more powerful and wise over time too. And Wolf says this is because, and this sentence shook me, so I'm going to read it word by word. She says, it's because the links between generations of women must always be newly broken. Older women fear young ones, young women fear old, and the beauty myth continues for all the female lifespan. Most urgently, women's identity must be premised upon our beauty so that we will remain vulnerable to outside approval, carrying the vital sensitive organ of self-esteem exposed to the air. Excuse me? She said what? I mean, speechless. Women versus stretch marks, cellulite, weight fluctuation, wrinkles. It's women versus nature. We cannot be weathered. We cannot show our erosion through life. We have to defy gravity. It's impossible. Ladies, the system is set up for us to fail. I mean, KO. I mean, how can we beat that? Okay, well, this is how we can beat it. Moving forward. The beauty myth is this pernicious thing embedded in our psyche. I mean, it's been indoctrinated in us for so long. Wolf says to combat this, it's not lobbyists or ballots that we're gonna have to see to first, but it's a whole new way to see. So this is her call to action. This insidious poison, although it may be a myth, is now an ideology, and we may never triumph over it, but as long as we really, are conscious to be aware and make efforts to stay aware, it's the resistance that counts. She says that the beauty myth inhibits women's new liberation by replacing our previous social limits of women's lives directly onto our faces and bodies. To counteract those limits, we must critically ask ourselves questions like, what is a woman? Does her life experiences have value? Who is this serving? Who does this profit? Who says? So the big question, are women beautiful or aren't we? Bitch, hell yeah we are. But we won't really believe it in a fulfilling and healthy way until we act beyond the myth. So does this mean we have to feel guilty about wanting to or trying to look beautiful? Au contraire. It simply means we have to heal the damage done to female sexuality, to female bonding, to female fun, clean and dirty. Wolf is not opposed to anything that makes a woman feel good. She's just trying to fight against what makes us feel bad in the first place. And she says that it's okay for us to acknowledge that we all want to feel beautiful and desirable. She said something I really liked. She said, just as the beauty myth did not really care what women look like as long as women felt ugly, we must see that it does not matter in the least what women look like as long as we feel beautiful. The real issue has nothing to do with whether women wear makeup or don't, gain weight or lose it, have surgery or shun it, dress up or down. The real problem is our lack of choice. The real problem is our lack of choice. I didn't really explain well why I like this quote so much. I think sometimes as women, or all the time, we feel like we owe the world pretty. We feel like it's an obligation to the world to be beautiful. And this is also why makeup is now just a part of getting ready for the day rather than something that you do as an extravagance or for a special occasion. It's the new bare minimum. We have a lack of choice of how we want to look or even what we want to achieve because the world demands us to be beautiful at the same time. I guess it just feels like it's our duty above all else. It just feels like a prerequisite as women that as we walk through life, that we must be beautiful. I don't want this! We can wear lipsticks and do our brows while speaking up for our rights. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. But I realize that is speaking quite in the abstract, and it's all easier said than done. So what are tangible actions that we can do? Find alternative images of beauty that perpetuate a beauty standard, a beauty ideal, or something that makes you feel like shit. Seek out films and plays and music that illuminate and uplift women. We can strengthen our bond with other women. We can compliment each other and show our admiration openly and refuse to compete for random male attention. Just understanding that someone's beauty doesn't take away yours. As we dismantle the myth, we can learn that what beauty promises, confidence, power, sexuality, those things don't really have anything to do with beauty specifically. It's already available to all women. It's inherent in our womanhood. Wolf really says that to truly gain our freedoms, it's about giving choice to women. To give yourself and other women the space to eat, to assert, to be sexual, to age. I'm going to end Wolf's teaching with another quote. She says, because it's her end quote, it's so good. She says, "Let's be shameless, be greedy, pursue pleasure, avoid pain, wear and touch and eat and drink what we feel like, tolerate other women's choices, seek out the sex we want and fight fiercely against the sex we do not want. Once we break through and change the rules so our sense of our own body cannot be shaken, sing that beauty and dress it up and flaunt it and revel in it." That really is the way that we should approach beauty. We acknowledge that it's okay, it's understandable to want to feel desirable and feel beautiful, but it's about approaching beauty with, the intentions of play. For our beauty not to have such gravity, that is the goal, that our beauty is just one aspect of ourselves, that it doesn't affect economy, that it doesn't affect pay, that it doesn't affect our relationships with other women and our sexuality. It's to try to take all the serious effects that it has and understand that it's just an aesthetic. I grew up wanting to look like everyone else around me, and everyone else around me was blonde and blue-eyed, and even now the things I don't like about my physical appearance are the things that don't look that Eurocentric. So although it's important to acknowledge the pressure of beauty as a universal one, I also want to acknowledge, the post-colonial lens. So although I do understand that the pressure of beauty and the beauty myth is universal and applies to everyone, I also want to acknowledge that our current standard of ideal beauty is a Eurocentric one, and it's rooted in colonization, and the beauty myth definitely affects women of color in a different way, and it's just important to acknowledge that. But I'm not completely transformed or enlightened after this book. I wish it was that easy. I still have insecurities, I still have my bad days, but it was so helpful to be able to articulate and critically analyze why I feel like shit sometimes, and then able to really assess my motives of wanting to look beautiful and making sure that it's for the right reasons. This knowledge is the first step to taking back your own face, your own body, your own sexuality, your own self-worth. Okay, so at this point the audio cuts out, and it's pretty unfortunate because I went off, as you can see, with how much I'm gesticulating. But if I have to summarize the rant, I guess I'm just saying if we take back our faces and our bodies and our beauty for ourselves and stop putting so much emphasis on it and so much gravitas, and stop letting it take up so much of our mental capacity. Like, if you think about how much you fret about planning or worrying about what people think about you aesthetically, and you put all that mental space to your ambitions and your goals and your achievements, like, just think about what we could do. Men would be quaking. They would be quaking in their boots. Like, they would not, we could take over the world. And that, folks, is the beauty myth shattered. Thank you and good night.